Joined by Byron Adera, ex-Kenya's Special Forces security analyst, to unpack this further. Good to see you, Byron. Quickly here, the spousal abuse and sexual harassment has been on the increase among couples in Kenya's police service. What could be responsible for this?
Good to see you, Sulaiman. Thanks for the question. Very important as well. The CS is not any further from the truth. From where I come, the KDF, the Kenya Defense Forces, as they say it, it's something that's unequivocally spelled out, and it's worked fairly well. So, the CS did not look any further than just an arms away when it needed to benchmark with where this has absolutely scored some very positive goals. To the extent that fraternization is discouraged within the system, we have to look beyond the information presented by the CS, which is, of course, the violence discussed here, to issues of how command and control and the excess of authority thereof by seniors may get diluted to a point where it gets to affect the outcomes of the processes get themselves involved in, up to and including the management of the force itself, and obviously the welfare issues, and as regards as well, the training or the preparation of the force itself to be optimized for excellence in service delivery. What has happened, I think, and which of course is rare, as I said, in different postures, where we have spousal violence of the police officers engaging in acts that end up taking their own lives, of the spouses, is to an extent a deeper problem where we have relationships that are sprung up between senior officers and the junior officers have, in a way, engaged in watered down issues of even training, so the preparation itself for the force, and of course the other delivery of service, where you find a spouse of maybe a senior officer perhaps disobeying command from other junior officers who are senior to them and who need to task them to do a duty or two. And to a large extent as well, this affects the way relationships, work relationships as such are treated between some officers who are engaged with the seniors in this kind of illicit affairs and end up, disobeying, command and there or tasks in terms of, where they're supposed to be delivering service. It's not just to themselves, but of course to the general public, because the force or the service itself is actually created to deliver service to the general populace. So if we have the police, set up in a manner that encourages or doesn't work efficiently to discourage this kind of illicit relationships that end up getting in the way of the way they deliver their services, that ideally it affects the security of the delivery of the key service by the service itself.
Byron, off the top of my head, I'm thinking this goes beyond love being blind. And again, looking at what is happening now, how can this law effectively address what is termed sexual harassment, especially between a senior officer and a junior officer?
Oh, fine. Love may be blind, but it may be unblinded by a lot of things. One of them would be the way we socialize and build organizational culture that is optimized to help overcome some of the, getting stuck in the mud with things that may not be as absolutely important. I'm privy to the fact that relationships get to happen, and matters emotions may not be mitigated to some extent. But what there is in terms of what has happened and what's been witnessed is the fact that the affairs here are just a manifestation of a deeper rot. One of them would be the way, even the people get into the ranks of the police force itself, which is in some way corrupt. So you get to have an affair that existed between a senior person that's in the police force and an individual out there, a civilian, that needs to get into the force. So when this happens, then you find out that an individual gets to find themselves into the police force through the ranks of training, which gets to be watered down to some extent because, hey, my wife is down in the training school, please go easy on them. These people get to graduate, and when they get into the ranks and file of the other individuals, then of course they have a senior person who's their top cover, who then encourages them to just breeze through things without obeying, the other members that they're working with and stuff like that. So it's deeper than just an affair that develops between individuals, especially if you are close to each other, we know that that may happen. But the deeper issues here and the rot here is the fact that people are not playing in a league where discipline takes deep root, conduct or personal affairs do not get their way into the public affair, especially with regards to the management to the and delivery of authority and command that optimizes the force to deliver against their set objectives. So yes, we may say love is absolutely blind, and that is true to some extent, but we may unblind the blind love by sticking to the dictates and the professional ethics of conduct to the National Police Service. And we may not need to get to a point where we discuss and of course bar people from enjoying some of the things that life itself treats us to quite naturally.
What about those who can't find love within the police and such as found in another service? We're talking about inter-service relationship, maybe a soldier who is so madly in love with a police officer. Are there laws in Kenya that is against such romance?
Not to the best of my knowledge. If we start to discuss matters of heart, then we may not finish them in a lifetime. But ideally, I do not know of any guidelines between the National Police Service and the KDF. I know of members of the KDF, the Kenya Defense Forces, that have successful marriages that are flourishing between them, so that the National Police Service. I may need to mention at this point in time that discipline and issues of professional practice may need to be treated a lot more important here. Conversation needs to happen. That you may have an affair that exists because love may be blind, as you say. But if we are all professional and we treated ourselves to the most important business at hand, and of course we get into this business knowing what to expect and the job descriptions that the TORs, I do not know why then this get watered down to a point where we now need to discuss issues of the way we manage our love affairs and things like that. So ideally, the most important question here for me is the fact that people get into this job, they lose centeredness. Professional ethics get watered down, and where other unimportant issues get to now find center stage to a point where they are now on the desk of a cabinet secretary to discuss and tell literally adults that this may need to be controlled, because if you are in an affair with a junior person and that junior person gets to mention your name to their commanders that I'm known to so and so and so, I don't need to take command from you, that actually gets to affect the entire service with regards to the way they operate and deliver against their core objectives. That is very, very important. So the whole idea is, for me, that we were to renegotiate our ways and reset to a point where we look at the professional practice and ethics and what is required of the service thereof. Then we may need to have a look at the way our personal conduct with regards to we treat our affairs do not need to get in the way. So
I think it's a fine place, Byron, for us to wrap this. Many thanks for your time, for unpacking this for us, Byron Adera, ex-Kenya Special Forces security analyst there for us.